Antonio Pierce said he had the recipe to beat Mahomes, and then he probably has his best game. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, not gonna lie, it was good to see Mahomes actually throw touchdowns in this game, and to Kelce nonetheless. We haven't seen Kelce do much. Garrett, your beard is missing. What
Yeah,
happened,
it's
man?
gone. I traded it to the Panthers because they're just or the Jags. Honestly, they're kind of clean in house. So
Yeah, for a conditional seventh round pick, because that's all they need. This is Talkin Chop.
Yeah, I want to just talk about that for a second.
This guy is a
it
beast.
seems like he just rubs butter on himself.
Because he had 2 touchdowns, baby. Welcome back, watchers and listeners, to the show. I am your host, David Picorni of Upper Hand Chiefs, and I am here with Garrett Amutis, our offensive line coach. All shaved up, all cleaned up.
All shaved up, all clean, baby.
And then I got the stats man, Jackson Steele, as always. I'm not going to say which direction everyone's on because
It gets
Can you
confusing
tell
at
which
this
one?
point. At this point, it just gets really confusing.
But yeah, we're back. We just beat the Raiders. We just did a bunch of things. I'm going to urge you guys to give our podcast a 5-star rating if you like the show. That's what
Facts.
Bossman Faraz said to do because it helps us out. So do that because it helps us out. But with that, we're sending Jackson back to the Shadow Realm, and we're going to get into this
I'll be back.
episode. He will be back.
He will be back at some point.
Just like Mahomes is back. Garrett, that looked really like a pretty good Mahomes perforness.
Yeah, I know.
considering
I
things-
mean, the score made it look like it was a closer game than it was, but I mean, the Raiders had that long drive in garbage time where we were kind of just playing prevent. I would like to see even in those situations where we're just bending. I don't want us to break though. We gave them that touchdown late at the end, but hey, defense did their job. Kind of clutched out for us once again. Mahomes still has a little bit of improvement to get to where we expect him to be, but I think that was his best game. So
Yeah, I mean, and listen, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, classic! It was the freest thing ever to bet a Mahomes interception." That pick was tipped, and we got put in some really dumb situations with the
Yeah.
penalties that we kept getting. I think Wanye Morris had 3 penalties, and
4.
like he had 4. Well, I just think he had 3 on one drive, is what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it
like
was
I
just-
think they were all came on that one drive, and it put us like in position for Mahomes
tackles,
to be.
man. Our tackle situation
Yeah.
is not great right now.
He was a second away from getting safetied up in that
Yeah.
like. And
I honestly thought it was on the live, but with the replay, I mean, he barely got bailed by just the slight positioning.
I wouldn't say bailed though, because I think even if Wanye Morris literally wasn't even blocking, I think Mahomes still was gonna go roll right,
Yeah.
and he was gonna be completely fine from a safety. That's a great thing to ask, Jackson. Has Mahomes ever taken a safety in his life? Like, I don't.
I
Really...
think he has. I think he has at least once. I'm pretty sure it's happened.
Because that's. I feel like That's an interesting thought experiment. All right, so let's move on to what happened this week. We got injury reports. A lot of Chiefs players went down in injury. We had the debut of DeAndre Hopkins, who me and Garrett wanted to come here. Garrett especially. Garrett has been advocating for DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm so happy.
To you've been wanting to we've been talking about this for like 4 weeks, and you've been wanting D-Hop as your top guy, and
I'd like to point out, I kept saying, how can he be worse than Sky Moore? And to prove my point, he goes out there, his first target, first snap of the game that he was in, gets a catch immediately. Already has more than Sky Moore on the air for the Chiefs.
That's
all I'm
crazy.
gonna say.
That's
I
insane.
know he only had 2 catches on the game, but honestly, I was kind of surprised with how many reps he was actually getting. I mean, he only had 1 practice with us. So
yeah, no,
for him to be in the game that much really exceeded my expectations. So
yeah, and I mean, listen, DeAndre Hopkins is definitely older, and he's a rental. He's probably only going to be here for 1 year. But dang, he looks sick in Justin Ross's number 8, and dang, does he look like?
I kind of hope he's here for longer. I'm not gonna lie.
I kind of hope he is too, because it looked so effortlessly, him running that 3rd down route and just Mahomes threw it up high and he was open.
He just came down
jumps
with it.
up and caught it. It was just.
I mean, that's what we brought him in for, right? It's like in those tough situations, we just need a guy that can come down with a ball, and he's proving pretty early on that even with the limited snaps that he had, that he can come down and do that. So,
and Jackson has told us that Mahomes has actually never been in for a safety, so that would have sucked if that was.
I'm probably thinking of that one like super deep sack he took against the Dolphins. That one.
Oh,
that
I do remember that. Like the 40, 50 yard sack.
40-yard sack. That's probably what I was thinking of, but
That was insane. So the Chiefs weren't done though. Today, I guess, or yesterday. Maybe it was today.
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. It's been a long couple of days. The Kansas City Chiefs have made a move again. We have traded for pass rusher Joshua Uche from the New England Patriots, former second-round pick out of Michigan. All we had to give up was a 2026 sixth-round pick. I love what Bill Belichick said about this. He was like on the Pat McAfee show talking about why this was a good deal for the Chiefs. And then McAfee's guys told him the trade comp for him. And he's like, a 2026 sixth? They gave up nothing for this guy. Belichick thinks that he's actually a really good player. And if Belichick thinks he's a good player, I think he's a good player. And I also liked him a lot because, I mean, I follow a lot of NFL teams and I love, defense especially. And I've been seeing a lot of his work. His 11.5 sack season in 2022 with Belichick without registering a single start, Garrett. He was just a rotational pass rusher. According to Pro Football Stats, he does not have a start on that season, but he still had 11.5 sacks. That's all we're going to ask him to do is rotational pass rush.
The thing that immediately comes to mind with this trade is it's kind of a mirror of the Frank Clark the Shark kind of trade, right? It's like you bring in a guy that was successful earlier on in his career and just kind of brings a guy that's a rotational depth player that we can, add to that, pretty decent defensive line front that we have in Karlaftis and Chris Jones and Dana and Omenahu. And it's just kind of allowing these guys to get back to where they were before. I know Dana's, been a little banged up. Omenahu's going to come back pretty soon. But he reminds me a lot, especially body-wise, of Frank Clark. So
yeah,
if he can bring up that same amount of the pressures and the production that he had in the playoffs, that's all we can ask for a sixth-round pick.
Honestly, that's a really good comparison. Ironically, he is wearing number 55 for Kansas City. That has been confirmed as of like 30 minutes ago via one of my sources. And number 55 is Frank Clark's number, the Shark. Uche's fast. Frank Clark was fast. They're more nimble pass rushers, but don't sleep on their power. I've been watching highlights of Uche. He's been amazing, honestly.
That's why
He's got
it really
some sacks
reminded me of him
Allen.
because, the prototypical kind of DN that the Chiefs kind of bring in is like those really tall, lanky DNs that are able to, put their hands up there and swat balls. Whereas this guy really isn't that type. He's just more of like a finesse guy, which I think can bring a lot of depth to our defensive line. Sorry, but I think it's a great pickup. Especially for the price. I mean, you can't really beat that, right?
Yeah, no, and especially 2 forced fumbles on that season as well, talking about his lengthy arms, kind of like just, punching the ball out, these fast sacks that catch the quarterbacks off guard. I feel like his sacks, when he does get them, are like the snap of your fingers, and that's when he's in the backfield already. Great addition. Brett Veach is really, really good at getting DNs, Garrett. I mean, you talked about the trade for Frank Clark. The trade for Emmanuel Ogbah way back when he goes off and wins a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The midseason acquisition of Terrell Suggs when we won that Super Bowl. The addition of Omenahu just recently. Brett Veach is just finding guys that are, DNs.
Maybe he can kind of transition that luck over to the tackle side. I know tackles aren't traded very often, but would really love it. We kind of need one really bad right now. And everyone's like, well, why don't you just bench Wanye Morris? I'm like, well, because Kingsley's behind him, and he's graded lower. So not really great option. Hey, put Chew in there, baby.
Put Chew Godric.
Give Chew a chance, man. He's a great player.
I mean, it's the thing is that they're young tackles, and you wasted high draft capital on them. I wouldn't say wasted, by the way. Sorry, not wasted. Used high draft capital to get them.
He's got a lot of time to figure it out, but it's just right now we're in really dire need for a tackle, and it's showcased really, really early on in that Raiders game. I mean, Max Crosby was just having his way with either side, really. I mean, Jawan Taylor played a lot better than Wanye Morris, don't get me wrong, but they were both still allowing things like just really easy pressures that we should not be letting up.
Apparently, Jawan Taylor didn't allow a single pressure that game, so I'm going to ask Jackson if that's true real quick, but I mean, Jawan Taylor stepped up. I mean, wait a minute. I don't think Jawan Taylor had a penalty. That might have been Jawan Taylor's best game of the season.
I feel like I don't think he did. I think it was all Wanye. I think because he definitely had 4. So
yeah, so I think Taylor improved drastically already. And,
his pass coverage is significantly better than both Wanye and Kingsley. I think Jawan kind of the place he struggles in the most is the run game, but I don't know what you really like. It's either you get beat in the run or you get beat in the pass. It's like we just kind of need a really balanced guy right now, and maybe we could bring in a vet. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we're kind of low on options.
Speaking of bringing in vets and stuff, like the Chiefs have gone through a ton of injuries and they are just piling up even more in this Raiders game. Already out, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, who might be coming back soon. He was spotted at practice last week, but I still feel like we're about 2-3 weeks out from seeing him ever suit up again. Lose Hollywood Brown to start the season. Lose Juju. Clyde is ruled out, and Dana as well. Let's just add more to the injuries. Oh, Jalen Watson is also out. Jalen Watson's probably out for the season too. Najee Johnson gets a concussion. At least he's only going to be out for 1 week. He's kind of been playing that nickel slot role, but he's playing a lot outside as well. And he's been doing pretty solid. I mean, he was a 7th round pick, so the learning curve definitely there. And he was missed all of last season due to an injury. So working his way back into the rotation, he actually finished as second on the team with tackles. So, I mean, that's pretty solid and considering he didn't even finish the game. So, but yeah, Najee Johnson concussion. We're getting thin at corner, Garrett. Like,
yeah, really and we've been pretty lucky up to this point in terms of injuries on defense. A lot of our injuries have been really offensive based, but it's kind of now catching up to us on the defensive side. So once again, we're going to be on the lookout for another guy that we can bring in to help kind of relieve the stress and pressure from these injuries. And corner is another place where it's going to be really hard to find guys that we can slot in there and get really good playing time and for them to be effective.
Yeah, because Christian Wallen, wow, holy cow. Roland Wallace, holy cow.
There you go.
It is a tongue twister today. He stepped up last week and got an interception, but this previous week, he kind of got beat on a couple out routes and stuff. He's also UDFA. You have Keith Taylor, who you brought back from the practice squad. Like, these are just not guys. And Josh Williams had 2 penalties as well. I don't want to dog on Josh Williams too much because he's kind of thrown into the fire, but he didn't have a great game either. So just a lot of concern about the depth. I feel like one more injury and it really gets concerning. Actually, if God forbid anything happened to Trent McDuffie, that's when it gets really dangerous.
And that's when it gets really sketchy too, because he's been our lockdown guy out there, and knock on wood, we really can't have any more guys drop. I mean, we're already losing guys left and right. I mean, and then especially with Jody Fortson now going on IR, which I know a lot of people are like, oh well, he's our 3rd string tight end, whatever. I think people don't realize that's a really big deal because he is one of our best run blockers when he is in those tight end sets. Mm-hmm. And losing a guy like that when Kelce is going to be our guy leading our charge. Gray, he's all right with blocking. He's not the best. And then our 3rd guy, Jared Wiley, he is not a blocker. So when we're running those tight end heavy sets, Jody Fortson being gone is a really, really big miss.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about him too is he has versatility to line up at wide receiver and still run block.
Yeah.
And they've been using him in that regard too. Sad that he got injured on the onside kick that the Raiders kicked. It's like they wouldn't have even kicked an onside kick had we, taken care of a couple things in the 4th quarter and cleaned up a little bit. So really sad injury for a player we brought back for a reunion, and he might miss the entire season as well. It's not just that the Chiefs players are getting injured; it's that they're getting injured for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
and that's
it's like if they were just like out a couple weeks, yeah, that's fine. But like, with Rashee Rice being out for the season, Hollywood Brown being out till the playoffs, Pacheco was out for a pretty extended amount of time. It's like, we just need these guys to come back. We have not been at full strength for any games this year, so it's hard to gauge where we're going to be when we do have all of our guys, right? Like, once playoff starts, we're going to have Hollywood back. Hopefully, DeAndre has fully learned the offense by then. We're going to be able to roll as with Worthy. God forbid he stays healthy. He of all the people to get injured, I was kind of expecting Worthy to be one of the first ones just because of his frame, but he's taking hits and he's getting back up. So,
he got hurt a bunch in college, but he played through it. And honestly, that's probably a good sign in terms of injuries. Honestly, you look at guys like Kadarius Toney versus Xavier Worthy. Kadarius Toney was a guy who was always hurt, but he wouldn't play. Xavier Worthy, a guy who was always hurt, but he would play. And there's something to be said for that. And Worthy got a touchdown. He definitely could have had a way better game,
And
but
you
he
know, he
still,
could have had a couple more, maybe even two, but you know, that's here or there, right? But
yeah, I mean, he
we
did
we
his.
had some haters in our football group chat talking about Worthy, dude. We had some
Yeah, I
haters.
know. I feel like it's more of a Texas hate where that comes from rather than a Worthy himself hate. So sorry guys, but I got the cup and everything. Like I'm really repping the Texas today. All my water bottles are in the wash, so I got my Texas Coca-Cola cup, not sponsored. So the other teams in the NFL are making moves because they're scared of us, Garrett, and also they need to make moves because it's time to compete for a championship. Let's start with the lesser of the two moves, one that I like but don't like that much. Well, I mean, it's kind of a move of you kind of have to do it. The Vikings season starting off super fire, and then all of a sudden the last two games they kind of dropped them. Two good opponents, don't get me wrong. The Rams are a great opponent when healthy, and they finally were healthy, and I think that's a quality loss where other people might not see it. They lose their left tackle for the entire season again. Christian Darrisaw
Yeah,
out for the entire
he's
season.
really good too. That's a really big drop.
No, absolutely. And they go out and get Cam Robinson from the Jags, their left tackle. The reason this trade happens, I think, with them and not anyone else is because of the cap situation. 16 million for Cam Robinson. It's hard to trade for a backup tackle. Well, you're going to have him be your backup when Darisaw comes back. So they only gave up a fifth round pick and they got a seventh back. So, it's a solid deal for them. They just have to take on a little bit more of that money. So Chiefs fans being like, why didn't we do that trade? We can't afford him at all. No. It can't even be close. I think we have like 5 million in cap space. So
yeah, it's pretty close.
That's a solid one. But Garrett, what's the other trade that happened today?
Yeah, so randomly, pretty much out of nowhere, Deontay Johnson and a 6 are on their way to the Ravens for a 5th. Really random and weird trade. I found it really interesting because, I mean, we talked about getting Deontay Johnson before. I don't know why we couldn't really do that. I feel like that could have been really beneficial at the time. I'm not sure if maybe we did call and they were just like, no, that's just not happening. Could have. But then he goes to the Ravens, who are also a really big contender. I don't know. It's possible we just didn't even make the call.
It's interesting to me because both are on the last year of their deal. And it's like maybe Veach was like, I want a proven veteran. Maybe Veach was like, I'd rather have someone learn the offense faster and be ready for football, like ready for high quality football snaps. And like also too, Hopkins and Johnson are quite possibly complete polar opposite wide receivers when it comes to what they do. Hopkins is a clear number one outside threat, can play the slot, can do anything, jump ball contested catcher. He's a true alpha dog wide receiver. Deontay Johnson is everything you'd want in an inside receiver who can play outside a little bit, but he does his best doing crossers over the middle, screen passes, which they love in Pittsburgh so much. They love to throw it to Deontay Johnson on screen passes in Pittsburgh. But he's kind of like a smaller Rashee Rice in that sense, like more a finesse Rashee Rice, whereas I think Rashee Rice is finesse and power, which I like about him. So maybe Veach was just like, we need to get a big body receiver for once. We need to get somebody who Mahomes can say, F it, he's down there somewhere. And so I don't think
don't
Deontay.
Get me wrong. If I was to choose between D-Hop and Deontay, it's D-Hop all the way. But with the numbers we have, would I have complained if we got both? I don't know.
Honestly, that's not terrible. Look, I personally would have picked Deontay Johnson just because of that age. And, I feel like Hopkins is a rental and we paid more to get Hopkins. So, but I trust Veach and I think he knows more than I do. So I'm going to trust him that D-Hop was the right choice.
No, we know ball. We know ball. I think we know a little bit more than the GM for the Chiefs. I think so.
Yeah. Okay. But I will say I might order a D-Hop jersey because he is one of my favorite players of all time.
And he's wearing number 8. That's my lucky number. So I'm it's kind of tempting.
I'm definitely going to buy it from China though. Sorry, NFLshop.com. But you took.
They take forever.
Yeah. You took, I think, May to October. How many months is that? Doesn't matter. That's how long it took my Worthy jersey to come. So if you're going to take that long, I might as well get it from China for like $120 cheaper. Sorry, guys. I do not endorse this at all, but it is just what I'm doing. Moving on to the segment of the week. Does Casey need a corner, Garrett? I mean, You're
Yes.
losing Jalen Watson.
That's the short answer. The short answer is yes.
You're losing Jalen Watson for possibly the entire season. Najee Johnson goes down with a concussion. Joshua Williams just got flagged twice and has been asi for, or better or for worse. Roland Wallace let up a couple plays last week, but he had an interception the week before. But he's still a UDFA and still young and learning the offense. Chamari Connor's good, but that depth is getting a little shaky. One more injury, and we're looking at some potential disaster class. But still haven't allowed a 300-yard passer since the Eagles Super Bowl. So, I mean, there's that. But let's look at some trade candidates first. Let's see who's on the block that we could possibly get that have been floated around as names. First one, Tre'Davious White. I don't want him at all. I'm sorry. This is a guy who I love. One of a great career Tre'Davious White had. One of the more slept on corners in the prime of his career.
Gave us a lot of trouble, when he was good.
Yes. But it reminds me of an Xavier Rhodes kind of end to his career where Rhodes was just horrible towards the end of his career. And Trey White, if you're not getting playing time on the Rams, being a healthy scratch, any player that's a healthy scratch, it's immediate concern, especially a veteran that you brought in to alleviate that issue. So for me, no.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm in total agreement there.
Jonathan Jones of the Pats. He's fast. He's on the last year of his deal. He's cheap, only $3 million. He's also not really had a great season, and I just don't think it.
Now,
I don't think he does anything better than anyone on the roster.
I will say, he is fast. Would that be beneficial in a scheme like our boy Spags, in which we send a lot of pressure from coverage? Might be a case to bring him in. Do we also have a lot of fast guys? Yes. Might be a better tackler. He's pretty decent at that. So.
Or he's.
I'm still saying no.
Or he's getting burnt so much. So
I'm still saying no. But if we were to get him, that would be my cope. It'd just be like, oh well, he's going to be blitzing from coverage. Yeah.
Well, the other thing with him is he's been a long time Belichick guy. So,
yeah,
he definitely has some special teams upside. So, I mean, there's that. This was one Jackson really likes. DJ Reed for the Jets. He's short, but he's still relatively young at 27 years old. And he is kind of a really underrated corner. Are the Jets about to do a fire sale, or are they going to keep this up? I think they're going to refuse to.
I feel like they're going to just continuously deny that they're going to be not good, and they're just going to keep their hopes up. Keep all their guys. They're like, guys, we can do this. We'll turn it around. As Joe Burrow says, we only got to win 7 of the next 9. It's easy, dude. They're gonna just keep deny, and then it's gonna come back to bite them.
That does seem kind of like what the Jets would be thinking right now. We got to win the 7 of the next 9. They probably need 9 of the next 9, honestly.
Yeah,
I like it. I would actually be pretty happy about it, but
I don't see it happening. But if it does, that'd be great. Sure.
I believe he went to K-State. Is that correct, Jackson? I just because, for some reason, we also love to bring in local heroes. I mean, Tershawn Wharton out of Missouri S&T. So, get those guys that grow up loving the Chiefs. And then
he did, in fact, go to K-State.
Thank you, Jackson, for that.
You're welcome.
Welcome back, by the way.
Yeah, I just wanted to give him some FaceTime, guys.
It's good to be back, guys. All right,
we just pop them in. We take him out, allow him to give his spiel, and then we throw him back in. We just kind of pull him up from the depths.
He's been a great help to this podcast, honestly. He's been really fun to have on. I mean, we're all high school buddies, so reconnecting since graduating college has been a fun little adventure. Also, he goes to Iowa State. I went over to Iowa State, and it was a wonderful time over there in Ames. But moving on to the last corner that we could trade for that I would want, I guess, or would bring up as a possibility. J.C. Horn out of the Panthers. Listen, Panthers, you're selling stuff to the Ravens. Let us in on the action. J.C. Horn, final year of his contract, under $1 million in cap hit right now. So he's a young stud at 24 years old, son of a great Joe Horn, and just been injured. All these guys honestly struggle with injuries, but he's been injured his entire career, it feels like. But that he's shown so many flashes of being a top corner. This could be a move where Veach kind of like a Tony move, like really buy a young player low and hope that they could reach their potential. But unlike the Tony move, I think this would actually work.
Yeah. And there's kind of two sides to this coin for the trade. It's like, yes, I feel like we'd have to overpay in terms of value, but if we did get him, like you said, he's really cheap, fits in our cap space really well. And he's young, has a lot of upside, possibly could extend him if he plays well if we got him. Do I think the Panthers move on from him specifically? No.
I don't know. I feel like they don't re-sign their players ever. Like we talked about Brian Burns like the other day. Like why didn't they bring back Brian Burns? Why did they trade him away when he?
I feel like
had
at
no
some point
value?
your GM has to learn though, right? Like he's got to at least sign somebody. And young corners that have potential are really, really rare to come by. Maybe we can fleece them. That'd be great. But I just feel like if I'm a GM, there's no way I'm trading away a young, potentially star corner to the best team in the league.
Yeah,
Especially not for anything like a normal payment. We'd have to overpay significantly for him. Do I think we could do that? It's really not in Vicha's repertoire, but as we've seen, he's broken a couple of his molds so far with DeAndre Hopkins. So
and the Chris Jones extension.
And Chris Jones. Who
Jones
knows?
Extension.
Maybe we could go out and get him, but I just don't think the Panthers move on from him.
Yeah. Well, let's blow through some free agent names real quick because, these guys, they're free agents for a reason, with all due respect.
Why don't we bring back an old segment, a little yay or nay?
Yeah,
we'll just
yay or nay. Xavier Howard.
No. He's
That's
washed and old. Big nay.
Big nay for me, especially when he was tweeting out that he would take a vet minimum. Also, he's doing that because of the scandal that we covered way back in the offseason, Garrett. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. That was a really big doozy there. It's like he's begging to play.
We'll touch on it a little bit. I think he took a picture of a certain child's mother in a certain clothesless state and sent it to the kid.
Man was just a degenerate and a menace, so I don't think we need that on the roster.
Yeah, I think he'll never play again. But so many Chiefs fans have been asking about it. We have to talk about it, unfortunately. But Xavier Howard is done.
Oh, Xavier Howard. Yeah, Patrick Peterson, though. Still no.
Yeah, he had okay years. He's kind of you bring him in to develop the team kind of corner at this point. I think he's a great culture fit, but honestly, I don't think he has much left in the tank. J.C. Jackson, one of the craziest fall-offs in NFL recent memory, I feel like, was getting paid
for like all of 2023, right? Or was he injured? I think it was like a really long suspension.
But before that, he was paid like $20 million a year by the Chargers and just was terrible that they had to healthy scratch him. Like, there's a reason he's still a free agent, and I don't want him, honestly. I mean, big nay. Troy Hill, the Panthers were kind and released him from their team because he's a vet that wanted a fresh start somewhere else. So they released him a couple weeks ago. He's okay, He's been on the Rams. I think he might. Jackson, was he on the Rams Super Bowl winning team? I know he's been on the Rams a lot and was their solid CB2 for a while. But again, a guy that doesn't really have much left in the tank. I feel like, he has more ups. I think he has more quality left of play, but I think his ceiling is much smaller.
It's kind of very middle of the road. Like probably more leaning nay than yay, but could flip. Who knows?
Trey Flowers, nay. He sucks. Sorry.
He's just terrible.
Trey Herndon, I thought he was really slept on the Jags when he was like their only corner, but that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and he's kind of been phased out of the NFL.
Just kind of fell off. So nay.
Yeah. Michael Ojemudia is just a guy that has been a preseason star. He's played for the Broncos against us, and he's had some he's played a little bit, but honestly, it just gets so weak at corner on free agency that this is about the best that we got. And then finally, Jerry Jacobs is one of the most confusing free agents. And Jackson did say that Troy Hill was on the Rams for their Super Bowl. So Troy Hill is already a ring winner.
Good for him. Got a ring. That just now he's done. He's done.
Well, I feel like he might have something left. The Panthers are giving him a chance to go test the market, but it might not be with us because I still think our corners are better and have higher potential. Jerry Jacobs, 3 interceptions last year, has only played in 3 NFL seasons, is 26 years old. He played for the Lions last year. Why is he a free agent? I really don't get it. Is there some off the field issues? Is there
There has to be something, right?
is there like a gambling
at
thing?
least some team would like just try him out, right? Like even like, for like a practice squad.
Yeah,
Or
it's
maybe,
just
maybe
kind of,
he's like getting in these deals and they're like, well, we want to try you out on the practice squad first, and he's just saying no.
I know the Rams were like dabbling with him this offseason a little bit, but he didn't end up really playing for the Rams. So Jerry Jacobs, because of how weird it is that you're still a free agent, I'm hesitant, and also maybe other teams are too. But 3 interceptions with the Lions last year, and their secondary was terrible. I thought he stepped up and stepped in when they needed it. So I don't know.
You know what?
I mean,
They've all been nays. I'll give him a yay. Why not?
I was gonna say, out of all the possible corners that we could get, that would probably be the only one where it's like, all right, cool, that works, and that's a solution for a temporary problem. Because I think Spags will find somebody to play corner. And you know what? I'm not opposed to Hicks playing the slot and just having. Oh, I guess Josh Williams has to play outside, so it's hard to find that outside corner, honestly.
But like you said, if we go one more down, right, then it gets into some really sketchy situations.
Well, and Jerry Jacobs is, I feel like, a slot, so there's that. But yeah, so not a lot of optimism, honestly, guys, in the corner market. So if you're a Chiefs fan dying for Veach to make a move at corner and he ends up not, then we'll just know that it's because our corners are better than the guys that are available on the trade market or that are available on free agency, because it's hard to get a corner midseason. I mean, you need
really
the depth at that position. If I have a good corner 4, I'm not trading him away. If I have a good corner 5, maybe I consider trading him away. But I mean,
even then, he's probably a good special teams guy.
Exactly. So why would I get rid of him? So hard to get a corner and hard to sign one off the free agency. Speaking of signing players off free agency, there's some actually pretty solid to good veteran tackles on free agency. Garrett, we've talked about Wanya Morris's struggles. Kingsley get benched, but hope for him in the future. Why not bring a veteran in to kind of supplement that issue? Does Donovan Smith, Super Bowl champion, come back? Former Chief, he's a free agent right now, and
and I feel like when he was here, he got a lot of flack, and I think that's just because it was our first couple years out of trading away Orlando Brown and get our first couple years away from Eric Fisher. From what we've seen right now, Donovan Smith last year, I'll take what his production last year than whatever's happening right now, right?
Yeah, and
he's still going to be pretty cheap. So could he also be a veteran presence, as we've said, for these younger guys that are looking for kind of guidance? I just don't think we have like a guy that can really like lead the charge and kind of coach these younger guys from a player position.
At the tackle specifically. Guards, we have all the vets, but
it's just, tackle's a very different position. And
yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing Donovan Smith come back. The guy I'm more excited about, if, the possibility of bringing in, is David Bakhtiari. It's really weird. Again, it's another situation like, why is he not on a team? Right?
Yeah.
Is it like, I know he's had his injury problems in the past, but if he still wants to play football, he was decent. I mean, at least better than Wanya Morris when he was, playing and healthy. But
I think
we don't know
he was
why
an All-Pro at one point.
Yeah.
Jackson, do you have the if he was an All-Pro? I know he made many, many Pro Bowls. Like, he was one of the best tackles in football, and then
it's like I know he has his podcast and all that.
Injury.
Like, is he just kind of like coasting into retirement? Who knows? Maybe he's just kind of waiting for that perfect situation where he's like, I know this team's gonna make a big run. Maybe I go for it. I don't know.
He does. He is one of those NFL players that puts on their podcast that the Chiefs are ref merchants and all that stuff. So, I don't know if I really want him.
It gets a lot of clicks.
To do that.
I don't blame a guy for trying to boost his his algorithms a little bit, but
I'll be biased. My mom went to Colorado. He went to Colorado. My name is David. His name is David. He was good at football. Bring him in. Bring him in. Jackson's got.
So Bakhtiari was All-Pro twice so far in his career, but
there's no more All-Pros in him, I don't think. How many Pro Bowls?
3 Pro Bowls. He did make second team All-Pro 3 times.
Wow.
Okay, so at least 5 seasons of good production, right? but he is 33.
5 seasons of top 3 production, Garrett. All Pro is hard.
So,
But that's
as
that's
we've
really
seen,
good.
Creed has gotten snuffed from multiple All Pros
That's
for
true.
no reason. I think it's that Chiefs, like, they don't want to give Chiefs players good rankings, man.
Yeah,
Finally,
if
he's
they're-
number 1 back on the rankings, though. I mean, it's well deserved too. I think he's the only center I think graded above a 90 right now. So,
Well, it's also too like, I mean, all the role players that the Chiefs had, role players. Like L'Jarius Sneed never got his recognition until he was getting traded, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is one of the best assets on the market."
yeah, whenever
Charvarius
he was on
Ward,
the Chiefs, everyone was like, "Well, it's just L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie," and then we finally trade him away. They're like, "Oh, he's just GOAT. Like, he's so good." Right.
and two with oh my gosh, I just forgot his name. I was saying it earlier, but Charvarius Ward, he was literally like our most like best kept secret. I feel like on the Chiefs, like he was such a good
Super
corner.
underrated.
And then, but no one talked about him. Once he goes to the Niners, oh my gosh, the Niners CB1. He's one of the top 10 corners.
Char
in the league.
Ward,
It's
the
like,
GOAT.
Oh, of course. Now you know his name. But yeah, it's interesting that Chiefs players don't be getting their recognition that they deserve.
But with a guy,
right.
like Donovan Smith and David Bakhtiari, like, those are kind of the guys I'd rather want. We put on there like DJ Humphries and Charles Leno.
I like DJ Humphries. He was the Cardinals left tackle, and like he's still under 30, so he's still young. The Cardinals cut him because he's too expensive, and they drafted his replacement. He's just been injured a ton, and I think that honestly, Garrett, you know more than I do. Like injuries to offensive line that are severe, like
So,
does that kind of
It really just depends on the lineman, because I've seen a lot of times where, like, linemen will play through injury, right? And it just depends on those specific types of injuries. Like, if it's something where it's to the lower leg area, those are kind of brutal. Like we saw with I'm blanking on his name, but that guard like 5 years ago that I was really excited about.
Kelechi
and he tore-
Osemele.
Yeah, Kelechi Osemele tore both ACLs on the same play. Don't even know how that's possible, but I was super excited for him. He was a really upside guard at the time, and just his legs literally shattered. Like, he was just obliterated.
I feel bad for him. I mean, he also used to comment on, I think, some of my old posts and stuff. Like, he was very active on Instagram and was like a cool like Chiefs personality. So like, I love Kelechi Osemele, and that was a really sad injury for him.
Yeah.
So DJ Humphries, according to Mr. Steele, is he got a ACL tear last season.
Right.
So that
And
might be why
those
he's
are
still out of a
workable.
job.
Right, and those are workable, but once the speed's gone, once kind of like the explosion from that lower body area kind of leaves the lineman, that's where it gets a little sketchy, right?
Well, and also they got to trust it.
Explosiveness is huge. They got to be able to trust the guy to go out there and play significant snaps. And are we going to bring in a guy that might take a little too long to learn our system, right? Like, we have a lot of pre-snap motions, changes, cadences that you have to learn from scratch, right? And
I feel like the casual viewer doesn't realize how much an offensive lineman has to learn in order to just pick up the offense. Like, they think that you just put the left tackle in and he block. Like,
put him in, he block Max Crosby. That is like, that's just kind of what the general view is. But I mean, there's so much scheme that goes in, especially on the Chiefs. I mean, we have 50,000 different formations and different alignments and assignments that go into each individual play, and then that counteracts with who you're playing against, what they line up in, right? And it's all this nonsense, and you have to learn it from scratch, especially going from different teams and coming off of not playing, right? Then he's gonna have to knock the rust off. It's gonna take him forever to get back in there, and I just think guys like Donovan Smith and David Bakhtiari, especially Donovan Smith, who knows our system already, would probably be a better pickup.
Yeah, true. All right. Let's move on to our Raiders recap as we're getting late in the hour. The Raiders game honestly was a refreshing watch. I thought we were going to dominate them a little bit more just with how well the early game script was going. And then we kind of like put our foot off the gas a little bit. We really committed to a run game. A tale as old as time. Yeah, honestly. We really committed to a run game that wasn't actually working that well, but I mean, honestly, shout out to Veach for shout out to not Veach, Andy Reid for still committing. Now, I will say,
with our run scheme, I was watching the game and Jackson was watching with me, and there was a lot of runs that if there was just one more cut, right, just one more break, they could have broken for a lot of yards. But the Raiders were playing really fast and physical off of these poles, and they were just really just careening us down at the line of scrimmage where, yeah, we were getting a lot of like 3.5 yard gains, but it's just we have to get that extra yard and a half, right?
Yeah.
And if we had a guy like Pacheco still in there, do I think he, pushes forward for a couple more? Yeah. And Kareem Hunt, he's been great so far, but there's a lot of times where he just kind of gets caught up. He gets a little twisted up with his feet and falls a little short, right?
Yeah. He only averaged 2.8 yards a carry today, but he did get his touchdown. But 21 carries. I mean, hey, we're pounding the rock, and it's good to see Andy Reid continue to rely on a run game, even when it's not working, because that's really crucial for just burning clock and giving your playmakers a rest and kind of just like controlling the pace of a football game, even if it's not working phenomenally. So kind of a knock, but kind of good. Travis Kelce's back. Hopefully it's not just a national tight end day special, but 10 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. That is going to fit the bill every day of the week. And that, if he could keep that up, oh my goodness, we'll be just fine and dandy on offense.
And like you said earlier during that game in the group chat, even when DeAndre Hopkins isn't getting targeted, he's still taking away defenders from Kelce. A lot of the trouble that he's had this year is because we don't have another guy that's that bruiser down the middle, right? So they're just doubling him constantly off the line. When you throw D-Hop in there, they can't do that, right? So it automatically opens up, these routes that Kelce hasn't had before, and he's kind of being able to get back in that motion, right? He's finding soft spots in the zones. He's sitting down easily. Mahomes and them are getting on track again. Hopefully that opens up continuously as D-Hop gets more reps. As Jackson stated, he was only in 32% of snaps, which for one practice on a team is a lot, right? We talked about before, Sky Moore had 43% of snaps the game before.
Bad.
So he's already getting up there in snap count, and it's only been one practice.
I love it. Yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like, I mean, with DeAndre Hopkins out there, it's just another threat to have, because like most of our receivers are smaller, more finesse and speed guys, and you don't necessarily put your best coverage guy on those players. You put your fastest guy, or you do a little like zone scheme to kind of catch the fast players. You don't put your top safety, your top linebacker, your top corner on that guy. And so that really helps Kelce out, because some teams have just put their best corner on Kelce. I mean, we've seen the clips of Jalen Ramsey getting toasted by Kelce because that's how they played him back maybe 2 years ago now. But that was, yeah, exactly what you said. We already talked about D-Hop looking good. Our run defense looked amazing.
As always.
I was so close to predicting this, but I said we were not going to let the Raiders have more than 30 yards rushing. They had 33, and we allowed their running backs to less than 30-yard rushing because they had a weird end-around wide receiver thing, and Minshew scrambled for like 6 yards or something. But we held the running backs to under 30 yards, so I still am going to give myself half a point for that one. But that's still insane. Our run defense might be one of the best of like post-2000s football.
If you take out Lamar Jackson, we have significantly under every single other team's rushing stats. Running backs are having a really difficult time getting through our front seven, and that's because of guys like Chris Jones. Mike Pennell had a huge tackle for loss early, like I think it was about middle point of the game. And Leo Chenal still balling out. I think he's like now still the 4th ranked linebacker in the league. So he's balling out.
Dude, Drew Tranquil also had a huge game today, and like let's just transition right into I think the best thing that happened in this entire game. First and goal at the 1 yard line after the Mahomes interception, 4 stops in a row.
Them, baby.
That was
dude, when they went for it on 4th down, you can ask Jackson. I was begging them to go for it. I was in, like, after that 3rd stop, I'm like, we got him. There's no way they get in on this, dude.
We both were.
We were just going crazy, man. It was such a hype moment.
When I was watching it too, I was like, they should kick the field goal here. They're going to get rid of these points. Like, I thought that was a bad coaching decision. I get being aggressive, but in a game like this, you don't leave points off the board.
I think if they were playing anyone else in that situation other than us, they kicked that field goal.
Well, that was just dumb.
Formula.
It was It's a part of his formula to beat Mahomes. But absolutely amazing stands. The linebackers, Leo Chenal is eating up like blocks, and then Tranquil, Bolton are flying in. Our D tackles are eating up blocks. Like their runs were just pitiful attempts to get into the end zone. Madison just got absolutely destroyed every single one of those rushing downs, and it was just a beautiful sight to see. Tranquil with second most tackles on the team. Leo Chenal had a sack. Tranquil had a sack. And then Karlaftis having the sack, they decided to throw it on 4th and goal. And
Just
oh
lights
my
him up.
gosh, they barely even got the snap off, and Karlaftis has already taken Minshew onto the ground. One of the most beautiful defensive football sequences I think I've seen since the Chiefs Spagnuolo defense. It was a masterclass. It was an epitome of what this team is, and that is a team that has a top defense. I think we could honestly say it's the top 1 defense in the NFL now, all things considered. That sequence is saying, we got this. We know Mahomes didn't mean to throw a pick because he got pressure in his face from Wanye. Defense said, we got this. And wow, that was epic.
They clutched up. And even with the pass game, Jacoby Myers was kind of eating us up early on, but we kind of locked him down later in the game. Guys, we held them to 1.5 yards a carry, all things considered. So teams are not able to run the ball on us. And in the passing game, we're bending and not breaking, right? It's like, sure, we're going to have a couple of blown coverages here and there, and we're going to have guys, especially as we're down a couple corners now, just get beat. But as long as we keep them from being able to control the ball, controlling time of possession, we're going to put ourselves in a lot of really great situations to win football games, right? I still think we were leading in terms of time of possession. I'm not exactly sure.
It was like 33 to 27.
But I mean, even then, that's 6 extra minutes, right? So
yeah,
it just allows us to have more time to control the game, control the flow, and put up more points, right? If we have more plays, more points, we're going to win games.
Absolutely.
It's really simple.
Let's move on to our matchup of the week, which is Buccaneers on Monday Night Football, Garrett. We're going to get some fresh reactions for our podcast episode, and it's been a little bit since we played on Monday Night Football. The Buccaneers team would have looked like, I think, our toughest matchup since the Ravens had they still had their top pass catchers, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Mike Evans might play, but he probably won't. Chris Godwin's out for the season. Honestly, a team that I really enjoyed watching play football. I think Baker Mayfield is fantastic. I think that
I love
their
Baker.
running back core is amazing. Cade Otton has really stepped up and will be something that we have to defend against in this upcoming game. But Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and that defensive line that they have, honestly, their front seven, especially with Levante David and Vita Vea. But Levante David might miss this game. So
it's a tale that a lot of NFL teams are feeling right now. It's like, I don't know why this year specifically, but it's kind of plagued with injuries all across the board. A lot of teams are losing guys early and long, right?
Yeah.
It's like normally in the season, you're getting like these couple, 1 or 2 week injuries, 3 weeks. A lot of these injuries this year have been full-on season-ending injuries. And
Stephon Diggs just had one last week after they already lost Nico Collins for 4 weeks for the Texans. Honestly, the Chiefs are just overcoming these injuries. We're having, knock on wood, we are having just as much, if not more, injuries than every other average NFL team, and we're just having to overcome it. So that just might be the story of this season: is how are these teams going to get creative, find playmakers, find offense, and overcome those injuries? Because with the Niners right now, it feels like they're making more excuses than anything with their situation. And it's like, you guys are not much better. You guys are not much worse off than we are in terms of injuries. Yeah. So
but
argument.
we can't really sleep on this Bucks team. It's like, they do have their main kind of core guys injured, but they're still playing really good football, right? It's like they lost a close one to the Falcons, and the Falcons are a good team. Falcons are a good team. As we've seen, they played us really close, came down to the wire in that game too. It's just I have a lot. Obviously I have confidence in my guys, but compared to last week, how we were feeling, knowing that we're probably going to go into this game and win pretty handedly, this one, it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, we've kind of fixed the issue where tight ends have been eating against us, but I'd say Kate Otten is kind of like their wide receiver one at this point right now. They didn't really use rookie Jalen McMillan all that much. Trey Palmer had a touchdown called back, I believe. And they really rely on their strength of their three-headed monster at running back of Sean Tucker, Rashad White, and the leader Bucky Irvin. They're all so good, not only in the run game, which I think will probably shut down because, we always shut down the run game, even if you have a multitude of backs that will eat. But I think
you'd think by now we'd have at least one running back that kind of like broke through. It's been locked down every single game. Derrick Henry is having a phenomenal season. We played him week 1, and I called him washed because we held him so little yards, and he is annihilating every rushing stat. But we were one of the only teams to really hold him.
Yeah, it made me think that he was washed too. I traded him away in fantasy, and I was like, oh, wait, he's actually still good.
Turns out we just had the GOAT defense week 1, so.
Yeah, but with Rashad White and Bucky Irving especially, it's their receiving ability that makes them lethal. They both have like plenty of receiving touchdowns on the season. And honestly, what we saw in that Ravens game early on was Justice Hill kind of eat at us a little bit. And Justice Hill is the Ravens receiving back. I'm a little worried that receiving backs kind of eat against us. We haven't really played many of them.
That's been forever. Like even for the last like 5 years, what are we always saying consistently when we're watching games? Can someone please cover the running back out of the backfield? It's constant. And I understand the way Spags defense works is you're having a lot of guys in motion. You're sending a lot of pressure from these really unfamiliar spots. But we're leaving that specific area open more often than we're not, right? And teams obviously have taken advantage of this, especially teams with good schemes, which I think the Vikings are going, the Buccaneers are going to have. I mean, they're well coached. We've played them pretty recently. I mean, not recently, but I mean, I hate to bring up that, that what shall not be named Super Bowl, but that was a while ago. But they still have a lot of their guys from that team, though.
Speaking of that Super Bowl, Levante David, one of the Bucs' star linebackers, will be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. Levante David is a player that Kelce said was his toughest matchup in his career was that 2020 Super Bowl. On his podcast, he said Levante David was his toughest matchup. And that's a lot of respect for a guy. And unfortunately, Levante David got injured last week against the Falcons. He might not play, Garrett. And that, I think, is going to be a huge difference in this game, especially coming off of a hot Kelce game. Levante David could have shut that all down really quickly, and we would have been back to calling Kelce washed. But now Kelce's going to have a lot easier time, especially because of that Buccaneers secondary. Outside of Antoine Winfield, who himself is pretty young, they are very young. They're very young, and they're kind of banged up too. And they're honestly... they're not as scary as when they had Carlton Davis and Jameel Dean and Sean Murphy's bunting. That core was amazing. Now you got guys that are just like, fast late round draft picks that, are definitely better than we thought they'd be, but, they're still not. I think that they're not going to really.
Yeah. I mean, even if Kelce has like another average game, we've seen guys behind him like Noah Gray come out and have really great games. So even if Kelce is, back to his usual kind of this year kind of slog, I think the guys behind him and the guys around him are going to pick up the slack. Offensively, I don't think we're going to struggle this game. Defensively, I think we might see one of our kind of like first kind of breaks. I wouldn't be surprised. Defensively, I think we're going to play well, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was the first game where offense might have to take the reins and kind of get us a win.
And I think they can, especially given the matchups, because when you take away Levante David, there's no one like big in the secondary or no one big on the linebacking core that can stop Kelce. Antoine Winfield is tiny. And I don't think any of those corners are going to be, Kelce's going to play with his food and he's going to have a good game. Mm-hmm. So I'm very optimistic offensively. And like you said, Garrett, defensively, even without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, Kate Otten last week, 9 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. And we've struggled against tight ends. We've kind of fixed it a little bit, but tight ends tend to eat on our system. And then, Rashad White's probably going to have maybe 50 yards receiving and a touchdown himself. So I agree with you. It could be. I still think we hold him to under 28, though. Do you think we keep that streak up?
Yeah, it just depends, right? It's like my expectations. I do expect us to hold them under 28, but any given Sunday, or in
Yeah.
this case, any given Monday, right?
Any given Monday.
I just think there's a chance, and I have a really bad feeling that offense is going to have to pick it up, and we might not be able to. I have trust in our guys. I think offensively we're gonna put it together, but just depends, right? We got a game plan pretty well, and Baker's a great quarterback. He's going to make really good throws, and he's had a couple games where he's made a lot of mistakes too. But we just got to take advantage. We can't turn the ball over, and as long as we control time of possession, I think we'll be okay.
So what are you going with predictions?
I'm going to go 32-27. I think that's a fair number.
I hate you for doing that because I was like about to do like 35-27. I think the Bucs get up to 27. I'm keeping them at 27 just because of the under 28 thing. And I mean, I think they're going to score. I can see them at least scoring 2 touchdowns easily. I mean, even though our defense is elite, the corners are struggling, and like we've
you can be an elite defense and give up scores. It's about being great in clutch moments, right? As we saw on that fourth down stop late in our own side of the field. It's just those are the moments where an elite defense takes over a game, right?
Absolutely.
If they had given up a touchdown there, yeah, maybe the game changes, right? But they didn't because we clutched up.
Jackson, we'll have you come on for the prediction, and then we're gonna wrap up the hour.
You took my score prediction. I was also gonna go 35-27.
Yeah, I think
we're all on the same page. It looks like.
I think our offense explodes and we get 5 touchdowns. That would be amazing.
I think after a week of practice under his belt, D-Hop will get a touchdown this week.
That would be nice to see.
I can see that.
First tutty as a Chief.
And he's not going to be playing against the toughest competition at the cornerback position. So, and I mean, they're smaller guys, but they're fast. Like that's kind of what their secondary is about. We now have Kelce and D-Hop. I think we're going to just like bully ball them down the field.
I can honestly see Bucs just bringing a lot of pressure and trying to take advantage of our tackle situation. And I think we can scheme against that. So,
yeah, well, I mean, Mahomes under pressure is honestly better than Mahomes in a clean pocket if we scheme appropriately and they send a heavy blitz instead of a 3-man blitz that gets the same amount of pressure as we've seen recently. But Vita Vea will probably make the running game a little bit harder, I feel like. But, I think we're just kind of just going to dink and dunk and do some splash deep bombs. And,
I still think Kareem Hunt's going to keep a streak going to touchdowns.
Oh, I can see that. I think Randy Reed has learned to run it in the red zone this season, and that's been nice to see. So, that wraps up our hour. We're excited for the Bucs game. Honestly, it'll be a really good game to watch on TV.
Tell us your score predictions in the comments.
We want to know absolutely. What you think. And honestly, guys, do the 5-star review thing if you think we did a good job this week. We've definitely had some banger episodes. Definitely had some, we're tired episodes, but 5-star review will really help the algorithm push us out more. So that's why you should do that. And as always, we're just talking chop.